Good morning, everybody. I'm here. It took me a while. I'm a little late because of, Mondays. Mondays I have a little issue with work, and today it was just one of those days. So again, if you're here on the more normal Monday through Friday, the time is 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central, except Mondays. Mondays could be a crapshoot. Usually, excuse me, usually no later than 9:30, but it just turns out that way sometimes. And before I even get started, I do want to give a shout out to Tazzy. Tazzy is someone, one of my friends from Straya, who watches the show on the replay most of the time and leaves comments in the comment section quite a bit. Thank you very much for the generous sponsoring the show through Streamlabs. And it was sometime overnight. Who said, love the show, always look forward to catching the replay first thing in the morning here in Straya. Cheers, mate. Well, cheers to you too, Tazzy, and I really, really appreciate the donation. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. It's a Monday thing, and the theme was science. She blinded me with science. So we're going to talk a little bit about the science that everyone likes to talk about, plus whatever. I got some headlines and stuff just from the weekend, so we'll get to it right after the intro. Johnny, play the intro, please. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, coming to you live from the Lucky Dog studio in a hidden location somewhere in the upper Midwest of the United States of America, it's a brother making his own way, but with all the wrong opinions. Welcome to the Morning Night Live with your host, yours truly, PDawgKnight. And stop the music. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Morning Night Live. I'm your host, Marty, also known as PDawgKnight on the internet. Welcome back to the Dawg Knight Channel. I'm so glad you're here on this beautiful Monday, the 22nd of March, 2021. Yes, we're still done with that last year, and is this year any better? I don't know. Not according to certain people of science who say that maybe even though you got vaccinated, and even though everyone around you is vaccinated, you might only be able to have a few people over for 4th of July. That's your incentive. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Oh, I turned the sound off on that. There we go. Thank you, tall person. The first donation of the day. And tall person,
you are the new Streamlabs Superstar Donor of the Day.
Thank you so much for sponsoring the show. It says happy as young as you feel day. This hits a little close to home because my birthday just passed. Oh, well, happy birthday. When was your birthday, tall person? I'm just curious. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear tall person. Happy birthday to you. Yes, I try to sing a little better than my friends on some of those other shows. Not, Anyway, thank you and happy birthday. And, I'm as young as I feel. Ooh, I'm not sure. I'm not so sure about that. I'm trying to figure out how young I feel. I'm starting to feel old every day. Although my knee feels better. Man, that cortisone shot that I got did wonders. I'm just telling you, I'd never had one of those before. I'd never had it when I was playing sports or anything. When I was having knee problems as a kid, and holy smokes, it's like I have a new knee, and I'm probably damaging it more, but whatever. And then also, it's March 20th. Well, happy birthday. Just a couple days ago. See, it was over the weekend, so I didn't do a stream. So I'm happy birthday, very much so. And now I got to get one in the hip. And we're going to see how that works. I'm going to try to avoid that old hip replacement thing. As soon as I get that shot, I'm going to get back on the bicycle and try to work out my maladies, so to speak, and see if I can do it naturally rather than turning into the $6 million man. Anyway, let's get started in the on the show here because I'm already short on time. But let's say good morning to the people in the chat. First in the chat today was Justin Anderson, who gets the bell. Thank you so much, Justin. Also, good morning, Selecta Boy.
Yeah, boy.
And also, hello, Advocatus Obli, Somnambul Nation, Hig 1966. Hello, Cindy, too. I know you're there in the background. Also, Uncle Bad Touch, we
Come
know.
on, man.
We know who you are. Also, Grillin' Pirate Pete. Hope you got the smoker fired up. Good morning, Gunfox61, the administrator of our fantastic Discord server and the most prolific news provider on the planet. Also, good morning, Wikipedia Snippet. Also, let's see, Maddie, good morning. Also, another news chick. And also, because you're part of one of those truck peoples, you get the horn. Hello, let's see, Becca Fairley, how you doing? Throwing out the good mornings to everybody there. Thank you so much. Also, good morning to, let's see. Oh, I got to scroll down a little bit. Zablay's in the house. Zablay. Also, good morning, San, Renee Mayette. Let's see. Oh, that's me. I don't want to say hi to myself. Silly me. Also, good morning to the gayest person on YouTube. 20 minutes late in the middle of a pandemic. I've heard that a couple times. There was some dude. Okay, what was he talking about? He was talking about something. Oh, about stuff at the border, right? And on the Sunday news show, because the media is starting to get a little annoyed with the current administration about the fact that they're not letting them see what's happening on the border, and they're not letting them report necessarily what's happening. They're not talking about what's happening. And this guy started making excuses like, well, we have it's kind of we're really busy down here and blah, blah, blah. And we're doing this in the middle of a pandemic. And he said in the middle of a pandemic like 3 different times during his explanation. I'm like, in the middle of a pandemic? Because everything's in the middle of a pandemic. I'm tying my shoes in the middle of a pandemic. I'm going to go wash my car in the middle of a pandemic. I'm going to go get some Chinese takeout in the middle of a pandemic. Get the fuck out of here. Everything's in the middle of a pandemic. Don't stop making excuses. Anyway, keep going. Good morning, Ricky Ravioli, Attack Alpaca, the one who. What up, Marty Peeps, lurking like the sniffer prez behind the hair of some old kid on stage. Ew. Anyway, good morning. Also, who else is here? I've kind of Data Wasteland. What's up, tall person? Of course, Ryan himself, Bastard Beast, Howard Welsh, Johnny Bonsaco, a whole bunch of people here today. Good morning, Maniac Man. Let's see. Is that about everybody? I'm getting close. I gotta be getting close. Tyler F's in the hizzo. Let's see. Richo, how you doing? Nice to see you, my friend from down under. And I think I'm all current. Very good, very good. So I'm a little behind, if you're probably well aware. And thanks to all of you who already sent out notifications of this chat of the stream today. Grillin' Pirate Pete, Becca Fairley. Let's see. Somnambul Nation, and I literally just set the tweets and parlays and mines and gabs and whatever you call them on all those different platforms. They are all out. So that, if you didn't get a notification, that's why. Hypnagogic Mumps also in the house. All right. And also thank you another sponsor today, Javendis My Douse. I always wonder now, it's a sponsor, and the sponsor today, thank you over the 566, and in fact,
you are the new Streamlabs Superstar Donor of the Day.
It says, My Douse Enterprises now has dead hooker removal services. We remove all grim remains and biohazards thoroughly, so no trace of evidence remains. We work with Brick Tops Pig Farm and Ed Nigel Storage for permanent disposal. I am very confused right now because I'm pretty sure I don't need the services for dead hooker removal, but any of you out there, that's one of my sponsors. Okay, thank you very much. And also, good morning, Uncle Stepdad. Just showed up in time, just in time. I gotta tell you, for those who've been following my dad's updates, he's recovering from his pacemaker. Oh, fantastic, man. That's very good to hear. Is it a pandemic or a dem panic? We're getting to that. We're getting to that. So, like I said, my theme today was science. And there were a couple articles that I ran across over the weekend that I'm going to go through almost completely because they're both kind of give you a feeling for what's happening. The other day when Rand Paul was questioning Dr. Fauci, who is unassailable, the most brilliant medical mind in the history of the world of all times ever, never ever has made any errors whatsoever, has given the greatest advice that you could give a country and in fact the entire world. He did ask some questions that, Dr. Fauci obviously answered perfectly and without any questionable reasoning whatsoever. And, it was talking about whether or not, why, if people should wear masks, after they've been vaccinated. And of course, Dr. Fauci says, of course you should, because it's not theater and it is a perfect idea of why, why you should wear a mask. Is Mike T here? I didn't see Mike T. I'll say hi to Mike T. I don't think he's here though, is he? I don't know. I didn't see Mike T. Let me see. At Mike. No, Mike T's not even here. Anyway, he might be listening anyway. And I the only issue that is that the question was, Senator Paul did ask about, where the data is that's saying that people who have been fully vaccinated or have had this very devastating disease, and have recovered, like myself, and as far as why they should wear masks, and what is the data that shows that they might, get it again, and Dr. Fauci kind of, I don't know, didn't really answer it, but that's okay. Maybe it's because I have top chat. Is that the problem? That could be. There you are, Mike. What's up? How you doing? Good to see you. All right. We have a sponsor, GunFox61 today. Breaking news: Florida, 2 injured, released from local medical center after massive single car crash in the Rolex Series 12 Hours of Sebring. Video in your DMs. Well, that's not good. If you're into auto racing, the 2 injured released from the local medical center. Okay, good. That's good news, actually. There was a big crash at Sebring this weekend, and we'll check out the video during the show. In fact, well, thank you, GunFox61. I appreciate that. Also, good morning, Jesse Leon, legit low talker. Nice to have you here. And somebody else showed up that I hadn't seen. I already said hi to Mike too. How you doing, Mike? Anyway, so let's talk about this, because I know a lot of people, and I use the picture of Ron DeSantis because Ron DeSantis seems to have a lot of detractors. There's this kind of blue anon myth that Ron DeSantis has fudged the numbers in Florida, which they have zero evidence of. Now, the woman that quit, and then they went and raided her house for some things that she had. I don't know. I don't know that whole story, other than that they raided her house, said that she had some stuff there, and they were charging her with something. But I until I gotta go back. I'm not going to talk about something I don't know about. But the idea is, yes, DeSantis fudged the numbers. His results are can't be seen. He can't be compared. Now, remember, Florida has the largest number of senior citizens in the country. And we know, too, that this particular disease is very, very dangerous for people over 70. As far as the number, as far as the numbers dies, it's much worse for people over 70 than people under 70. And a vast majority of the people who died have been over 70, and in fact, many over 80. And so it's not, and it's so you would think the state with the highest population in that particular age demographic, you would think that they would have, by far the most, deaths from COVID-19, and fact is they don't. In fact, it's not even close. And also per capita, they're not even close. In fact, they're 24th per capita in deaths, 27th per capita in cases. Whereas, New York per capita, New Jersey per capita, Rhode Island per capita are all far worse. And even South Dakota per capita is far worse. Florida has been, they took care of the seniors first, and they're still taking care of the seniors first as far as vaccines, who they're vaccinating, and using an approach based on the data, on the fact that the people who are most vulnerable to this particular disease are seniors. And it seems to have been a good strategy, but for whatever reason, because now look, it's funny how people will use the number of cases, the number of deaths when it suits their fancy, and then when it's if it suits their fancy to have per capita, then they'll go use that number. Well, so they don't seem to like to look at the per capita cases, per capita deaths in Florida, because their numbers are higher than most of the states. They're one of the top 10 states in number of cases. Well, yeah, they're also the top 5 states in population. And the highest population of people over 70 years old. By far, even more than California, even more than New York. So you would think they'd be terrible. But this article was interesting to me. So I got to pop it up here. Hang on. Because being late, I didn't have everything set up when I got here. Nope, that's not right. Hang on. There we go. Let's make sure this one over here works too before I pop it on. Momento, por favor. All right, here we go. So Ron DeSantis versus the Party of Science. And I wouldn't say all, well, I don't know. Anyway, here you go. Progressives and their mainstream media allies, well, that's redundant, have long accused conservatives of waging a war on science. She blinded me with science. A year into the COVID-19 pandemic, anti-science is now used as an epithet for anyone who questions the endless restrictions, interventions, and doomsday predictions that underpin Democratic governors' draconian COVID-19 responses. As more than 500,000 Americans have died of the virus, anti-science, quote unquote, is becoming progressive shorthand for murderer. That's why the left's favorite criticism for Florida governors. That's why it's the left's favorite criticism for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. In May 2020, when DeSantis began reopening his state, 10 Democrats from Florida congressional delegation wrote him a scathing open letter warning that, quote, rushed opening, end quote, might increase, quote, human loss, end quote. They accused DeSantis of resisting, quote, science-based and data-driven mitigation strategies, end quote. The governor gained a new nickname, which the critics plastered on billboards: Death Santis. Fast forward 10 months, scientific breakthroughs, not mass mandates or school closures, but vaccines developed via or because some people don't give Operation Warp Speed credit, but you know what? That's your prerogative, are bringing the pandemic under control. To say Florida has done better than expected is an understatement. With the third largest and second oldest population in the country, Florida ranks 27th in COVID-19 deaths per capita. The 3 states with the highest rate of COVID-19 deaths are New Jersey, New York, and Rhode Island. All 3 had far more restrictive and lengthier lockdowns than Florida, and all 3 are run by Democrats. As a recent Wall Street Journal editorial put it, the data bring vindication for Ron DeSantis. Even a New York Times headline admitted, quote, I'd much rather be in Florida. How did this happen? While Democrats focused on processes, DeSantis focused on outcomes. Throughout the pandemic, progressives have embraced public health theater, heavy-handed, highly visible, costly interventions that lack evidence of effectiveness, but appease the media-fueled anxieties of the voter base. Cloth face coverings, plexiglass barriers, and lockdowns all fall into this category. By contrast, DeSantis eschewed performative virtue signaling in favor of evidence-based measures. While the party of science called him a murderer, DeSantis followed the science. She blinded me with science, and it saved lives. Hello, Bastard Beast. Florida sucks. Okay. All right. Instead of reporting inconvenient truths about Florida, DeSantis media critics, from the Miami Herald to MSNBC, have obscured the facts with an outlandish conspiracy theory, blue anon. Countless employees from multiple agencies colluded with the governor to conceal the true number of COVID-19 deaths in the state. The single source? Rebecca Jones, who was fired from a low-level job at Florida's Department of Health, DOH, in May 2020. Jones claimed without evidence that the DeSantis administration told her to manipulate COVID-19 data for Florida's reopening and then fired her to cover the tracks. Okay, let me just read on first, because I'm going to give you my thought on that. DOH personnel records indicate, however, that Jones was actually terminated for courting publicly posting the agency's charts on her personal blog and even sabotaging the state's COVID-19 dashboard. That didn't stop the mainstream media from lionizing her, enabling her to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars to launch her own COVID-19 website. She promised to publish, quote, the real numbers, end quote, that DeSantis was allegedly suppressing, but in fact, Jones' site used the exact same data as Florida's official dashboard. Oh, then there she is. So, Becca wants to build a new dashboard to show the real numbers, but needs support to buy software and pay the rent. Please help her. Yeah, it's funny that GoFundMe would allow that one to go through when she's clearly stealing from the state. Anyway, Jones' dashboard did show higher figures than the state's COVID-19 dashboard, but not because DeSantis was hiding anything. Jones inflated Florida's case numbers by adding antibody positives to PCR antigen positives. She inflated the state's death count by lumping together non-resident and resident deaths. Both of these practices violated CDC reporting guidelines, yet the media ignored Jones' unscientific data reporting in favor of her salacious explanation for the discrepancies. Quote, the governor himself was overseeing a vast COVID-19 cover-up. The Daily Beast even anointed Jones DeSantis's worst nightmare. Thank you, GunFox61, for your continued sponsorship of the Morning Night Live through Streamlabs. And GunFox says, Marty, in history, Spanish flu started February 9th, 1918 to April 20th, 1920. In four waves, killed an estimated 100 million, first noticed in the state of Kansas, then in France, where it took off like wildfire in the trenches of World War I. Infected an estimated over 500 million people. Well, thank you for that small history lesson, GunFox61, and your continued sponsorship of the show. Also, good morning, Gamer Valine and Rusty Shaq and Bastard Beast. Nice to see you here. But lately, I'm going to continue here. Oh, by the way, I do have my cup. Here, hang on. This will be a good time now that I've taken that short break to let you know that I do have my cup of reparations in the Papa Bear cup today. And I'm just going to take a sip because I'm a little parched. Hang on. And hello, Mr. Yes. Okay, let's continue. But lately, Jones' credibility, even by abysmal media or mainstream media standards, wait a minute, hold up. Abysmal mainstream media standards. That's a little redundant too, isn't it? Anyway, is wearing thin. Last month when Jones tweeted that Florida had surpassed New York in COVID-19 deaths, the CDC itself refuted her. Turns out she hadn't included data for a little town called New York City. Get a rope. Hello, Chicago Mike. Someone's fudging the numbers, but it's not DeSantis. Nevertheless, Jones' COVID-19 disinformation did not deter Emily Block from writing a breathless puff piece last week about the left's anti-DeSantis heroine for Cosmopolitan, the women's magazine renowned for such scientific insights as obesity is healthy. Block, the president of the Florida Society of Professional Journalists, neglected to fact-check Jones's allegations about Florida's COVID-19 data, but did publish Jones' comparison of DeSantis' Latina communications director to a Chihuahua. Sounds a little racist to me.
That's racist!
Apparently, this is what passes for hard-hitting political journalism in the party of science, feminism, and anti-racism. With Jones' credibility in decline and DeSantis' star on the rise, Democrats and their media mouthpieces are moving to another Florida COVID-19 conspiracy theory. DeSantis is intentionally prioritizing vaccinations for rich white conservatives. Agricultural Commissioner Nikki Fried, Florida's only statewide elected Democrat and likely contender in next year's gubernatorial race, is an enthusiastic proponent of this narrative. On March 1st, Fried sent a letter to Congress accusing DeSantis of selling vaccine access to wealthy GOP donors. Fried also has been a leading advocate of Jones' COVID-19 fantasies. She referred to the data analyst as Dr. Rebecca Jones in an open letter to DeSantis. Like Jones' tale, these vaccine conspiracy theories are tailor-made for uncritical mainstream media promotion. They weave an irresistible narrative of GOP corruption, inequality, and racism.
That's racist!
And, as with Jones' story, the narrative overpowers the facts. Oh, you think? Now, a year into the pandemic, there is scientific consensus. Seniors are at a higher risk for COVID-19 complications and death. By the way, YouTube, these are facts and science. She blinded me with science. Compared to 18 to 29-year-olds, 65 to 74-year-olds are 73 times more likely to die if they contract COVID-19. Not 73%, 73 times. The risk increase exponentially for older cohorts. A data-driven, science-based vaccine rollout would therefore prioritize seniors. Duh. Nevertheless, in December, the CDC recommended prioritizing younger essential workers along with adults 75 and up. Thank you, Chicago Mike, for sponsoring the show through YouTube SuperChats today. Just a penny under a quince. Is that right? No, quintuple? Whatever 5 is. Who says DeSantis is pro-Trump, thus evil. According to the media. I like that one. That old gopher. The evil gopher. I love that. Anyway, a data-driven, science-based vaccine rollout would therefore prioritize seniors. Nevertheless, yeah. So, and then the CDC says, oh no, we should be prioritizing younger essential workers. Over 65, 73 times more likely to die if they contract COVID-19. Florida vaccinated frontline healthcare workers in the first wave, but then DeSantis overrode the CDC to expand eligibility to all Floridians 65 and older. If you're a 22-year-old working at a supermarket, you would have preference over a 74-year-old grandmother, he said in response to the CDC guidelines at a December press conference. I don't think that's the direction we want to go. Good for him. In response, however, Democrats and the progressive media, again, redundant, accused the governor of racism.
That's racist!
What? Wait a minute. How is choosing older people over younger people racist?
That's racist!
Quote, DeSantis is treating communities of color just as an afterthought. Democratic state lawmaker Omari Hardy told NBC News. Freed claimed on MSNBC that DeSantis allowed his white, wealthy donors to cut the line while all of our minorities are still waiting for the vaccines. It's true that younger essential workers are more likely to be people of color, and most Florida seniors are white. This does not, however, negate the overwhelming evidence that older adults of any race face exponentially greater risk of hospitalization and death from COVID-19. While DeSantis continued to follow the science, the CDC soon revised its guidelines in line with Florida's approach. Wait a minute. Science! But the media doubled down. Last month, NBC lamented that DeSantis was courting Florida's Jewish and Cuban voting blocs by vaccinating homebound Holocaust survivors and Bay of Pig veterans. Well, how old are they? That's what I'm wondering. Of course, almost everyone in those categories is 85 or older. And COVID-19 is 527 times more deadly for that age group than for young adults. That didn't stop the progressive outlet The Forward from quoting a professor who called DeSantis' vaccination of Holocaust survivors a venal political maneuver. These people are deranged. Another persistent COVID-19 vaccine and DeSantis conspiracy theory involves the Florida supermarket chain Publix. Salon, Orlando Sentinel, and other media outlets have suggested Publix won the right to distribute COVID-19 vaccines in exchange for a $100,000 donation to a pro-DeSantis PAC. Representative Hardy went a step further, accusing the governor of corruption and calling the Publix partnership more evidence that DeSantis doesn't care about black people.
That's racist!
That's a double whammy. Of course, the facts say otherwise. DeSantis' PAC raised $3.22 million in February alone. It's hard to imagine a $100,000 donation could buy Publix undue influence. There's a simpler explanation. The chain already had the infrastructure to distribute COVID-19 vaccines. Its pharmacists have experience administering shots because they inoculate countless Floridians for the flu every season. I bet Walgreens and CVS also had those, got to do that too. Anyway, The chain has hundreds of locations throughout the state. It's easier for most Floridians to get to their local Publix than their county's health department. According to DeSantis spokeswoman Meredith Beatrice, the chain was chosen over competitors because Publix was the first to answer the call to mobilize vaccination sites. As a conservative, DeSantis does not expand government where the private sector can achieve better results. Yes! 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 Good morning, Zach Osborne, and fight for your rights. To be sure, COVID-19 outcomes and vaccine access in minority communities are legitimate concerns. The Atlantic's COVID-19 tracking project, which notably gave Florida an A grade for data reporting, reports that nationwide African Americans are 1.4 times more likely than whites to die of COVID-19. Vaccine hesitancy among African Americans stems in part from a history of unethical and racist experiments, like the 1932 Tuskegee study, for which black men were recruited without informed consent for an experiment that withheld treatment for syphilis. And Representative Hardy's criticism of the Publix partnership was based on the fact that the supermarket chain lacks a presence in some communities of color. Certainly, these issues deserve attention, but the claim that DeSantis has done nothing to address racial disparities is simply false. Florida Deputy Secretary of Health Shamariel Roberson, a black epidemiologist, has been a leader in the vaccine rollout since the start. As the first COVID-19 vaccines hit the market, DeSantis announced an initiative to partner with African-American faith leaders who have been instrumental in educating their congregations about the importance of inoculation. The DeSantis administration has opened up vaccine sites at predominantly black churches around the state. He went to our churches and set up shop. Give that man a hand. To reach more seniors in underserved communities. And state workers are canvassing minority neighborhoods, knocking on thousands of doors to help eligible residents get their shots. Going door to door in the hood. That's not racist. Thank you, Chicago Bite, to the $9.99. I'm going to call that for the Herman Cain donation. That's what I need to do. I need a Herman Cain donation, the $9.99. I like that. Anyway, Chicago Mike says, my parents are over 65 and live at Miami, so they were able to get the vaccine. By the way, they were both born in Cuba, thus Hispanic and not white. What the hell are they talking about? I don't know, Chicago Mike, but thank you so much for sponsoring the show, and your continued sponsorship is greatly appreciated. Thank you for the Herman Cain. But instead of reporting on these important efforts to remedy racial disparities in vaccination, DeSantis' opponents and their media cheerleaders, I repeat myself, have aired increasingly bizarre speculation. A resident of Broward County, where 45.6% of seniors have been fully vaccinated, filed a federal complaint accusing DeSantis of discrimination for opening a vaccine site in Manatee County, where just 27% of seniors have received both their shots. And recently, Freed told the Daily Beast Molly Jong Fast, if you know who that is, I don't even want, what should I put in the chat for Molly Chong Fast? She's a lunatic. And it told the Daily Beast Molly Chong Fast about her, quote, hunch, end quote, that DeSantis caught COVID last fall and hid it from the public. When conspiracy theories fuel the narrative, who needs facts? Blue Anon. Yes, I did read that one. Okay. Oh my gosh. 3 months into Florida's vaccine rollout, the data is again proving DeSantis right. apocalyptic predictions of massive COVID-19 spikes and death tolls after the Super Bowl in Tampa have not materialized. Just 57 cases were linked to the event. Daily COVID-19 deaths are dwindling. By early March, a majority of Floridians 65 and older had received at least one shot, and Florida has become a national leader in vaccinating seniors. About 28% of Florida's total population has been inoculated by that point, in line with the national average. Florida is now expanding eligibility to younger adults while prioritizing those with conditions like HIV or AIDS. While DeSantis' opponents call his pandemic policies racist, the numbers tell a different story. Florida's approach has resulted in better outcomes for African Americans relative to Democrat-run states like Michigan, New Jersey, and New York. COVID-19 deaths among Black Floridians have been roughly proportionate to the state's demographic. African Americans make up 15% of Florida's population and 16% of COVID-19 deaths. By contrast, a staggering 23% of those who died of COVID-19 in New York were African American, who comprised just 14% of the state's population. Perhaps this is why New York Governor Andrew Cuomo needs a vaccine equity task force, while DeSantis does not. But is there any truth to the pervasive allegation that DeSantis is funneling most of Florida's vaccine to wealthy, conservative, predominantly white...
You're fucking a white male!
...enclaves? Not according to the data. University of Florida epidemiologist Jason Salimi tracks the state's vaccine rollouts. Of the Florida counties with the largest senior population, Salimi's dashboard shows the highest percentage of vaccinated in Broward, Palm Beach, and Dade, all reliably blue and racially diverse. Even NBC had to admit that shots are well distributed across ideological lines. Thank you, Maddie, for the super chat sponsorship. I greatly appreciate it. And Maddie says, as Tom Baker's doctor on Doctor Who would say, you know, the very powerful and the very stupid have one thing in common. They don't alter their views to fit the facts. They alter the facts to fit the views. Yes, 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 they do. Thank you very much, Maddie, for sponsoring the show. However, despite the fact that even NBC had to admit that the shots are well distributed across ideological lines, Democratic Representative Charlie Crist, I remember Charlie Crist, he's like super tan, white-haired dude, used to be the governor. Anyway, another potential gubernatorial challenger from urging the Department of Justice to investigate DeSantis for selecting vaccination sites to benefit political allies and donors. Not to be outdone, Nikki Fried is calling for an FBI investigation. They just can't help themselves. I think they're worried that DeSantis is the next Donald Trump or something. I don't know. Anyway, with Democrats in control of the federal government and DeSantis seen as a top 2024 presidential contender, the DOJ and FBI might very well investigate Florida's vaccine rollout, but the Democrats calling for these investigations on the basis of blue anon conspiracy theories are ignoring another inconvenient fact. Yes, I added that on the fly with the blue anon thing there. DeSantis himself isn't managing vaccine logistics. The Florida Division of Emergency Management is. The director is Jared Moskowitz, a progressive Democrat and outspoken supporter of President Joe Rahim Biden. It's puzzling that Florida Democrats seem so eager to smear one of their own, especially as Moskowitz's agency is doing a good job with the vaccine rollout. Incidentally, Moskowitz has urged his fellow Democrats not to fall for COVID-19 conspiracy theories about Florida as those promoted by Jones. Even the numbers prove them wrong. The media's growing number of anti-DeSantis activists are still scrambling to find reasons to criticize DeSantis' COVID-19 response. Miami Herald's investigative reporter, Julie Brown, recently tweeted a photo from a vaccination site claiming that people have been waiting in this COVID vaccine car line in Miami since 4:30 a.m. and implying that DeSantis was somehow responsible. What the fuck? Okay, so... What the hell does she? Here she is, right here. Florida, everything is great in Florida. Meanwhile, just spoke to a woman who has been waiting in this COVID vaccine line since 4:30 a.m. Does a governor go out there and manage the line himself? Good God. Anyway, implying that DeSantis was somehow responsible. However, Brown didn't mention that the crowded Miami site was administered by FEMA. The federal government, which opened up vaccines to Floridians who weren't yet eligible under the state guidelines. So they came in and opened up a site where anyone else, all these other people are eligible instead of the people that Florida has, set up. And so they had long lines of the people who are panicking, probably a line full of Biden supporters because they're, everyone's so scared. By the way, I speak to this as a COVID-19 survivor. Thank you very much. I am part of the 99.97%. No matter what narrative the media spins, facts are stubborn things. It's a fact that seniors are at the highest risk for COVID-19 complications. It's also a fact that Floridians 65 and older tend to be more white and conservative than younger demographics. Scientists, however, understand that correlation does not imply causation. DeSantis is vaccinating seniors first because they're more likely to die of COVID-19, not because they're more likely to vote for him. Instead of caving to the media and political pressure, DeSantis has followed the science. She blinded me with science. Now, other Republican governors are following his lead. If Democrats are pushing for a federal investigation of DeSantis for Florida's successful science-based COVID-19 response, who represents the party? Who represents the party of science now?
Gotcha, bitch.
And that's from someone named Christine Pushaw from the Human Events. And that article will be in the list of articles we use today. So, did you know Obama's building a beach getaway guest house on the same property that Magnum PI was filmed on? I did not know that. So he's building a house in Hawaii now too? Or no, did they do that in Hawaii? I don't know. Dana Wasteland, by the way, good morning to you. And also good morning, MC.
Hammer time.
And Jen T, good morning to you too. I have a question about that, Data Wasteland. Maybe you know the answer. The same property that Magnum PI was filmed on. Are you saying, so was that filmed in Hawaii? Is that where that was, or was it filmed somewhere else? And number two, and this is just a general question, if anyone knows the answer to this, why does Barack Obama keep buying houses on beach property when we know that the oceans are going to rise and all his beach property is going to be underwater in the next 7 years when the world comes to an end? I don't understand the logic behind that. I really don't. Hawaii. Okay, they did do that in Hawaii. Okay. I am dumbfounded. I got to tell you. Let's see here. At this point, okay, this is so Ace. Is it Ace who did this? No, CBD did this on the Ace of Spades blog. Question about that last article. At this point, any claim that a policy is science-based is akin to being common sense, or for the children. If the Democratic Party apparatus had its druthers, we would have our own version of the Soviet-era Article 70, complete with criminal penalties for disagreeing with the orthodoxy and their corporate property, because the corporate partners and the social media people already do that. So it is a small step from Twitter deplatforming people for wrongthink about the flew from the country of origin that we shall not speak of, to the government doing the same. Free speech, no matter the content, is at the pinnacle of Western philosophy. It took us 2,500 years to get here and just a few years to destroy it. Think back to the 70s when the ACLU defended the right of a few Nazi nutters to march in Skokie, Illinois, a town with many Holocaust survivors. As abhorrent as that may seem, that is free speech. But today we have lost all the connection to the ideals of freedom and liberty that the Western world nurtured and defended for so long. Religion was the first brick knocked out of the foundation of Western culture. Science came next. And what do you think the next target will be of our new anti-freedom overlords? Good question. Good morning, Black Hebrew Israelite, by the way.
That's right.
Nice to see you in the chat. All right, let me, by the way, let me do oh my gosh, I'm really running out of time. Yeah, it sucks when you have to start late. Thanks everyone for being here, by the way. If you like what's going on, or if you like the channel or whatever, this particular stream, please hit the like button down there. And if you haven't shared the stream out, hit the share button down here and choose your social media you want to put it on, or you can go to Twitter, Minds, Gab, Parler, or Cloud Hub. I am on all those platforms as at PDawgKnight. You can repost, retweet, republish, whatever, echo, whatever they call it on that, at whatever platform. And especially, I'm active on Twitter. It's kind of on mine a little bit, and the others are pretty much notification machines for people who've gotten kicked off of other social media. So if you're kicked off of your favorite social media or whatever, your least favorite, Twitter, go sign up for one of those and you'll still get notifications. And there are interesting people in those places too. Also, if you're ever having a problem with the stream on this channel and YouTube, you can always go watch it on Trovo or DLive, which I simultaneously stream on those platforms. Eventually, I'll probably start paying attention to the chats on those. There are like 2 people who watch this on DLive occasionally and 1 person on Trovo. But those work too. So probably sometimes when YouTube goes down, those are still working, even though like the other day when I completely lost the stream, they were still playing on those 2 places until I got this one back. Anyway, stop running on CPT. We're not going to talk about, Jedi Ghost Bear's in the house too. How you doing? All right. You know, my other article was kind of about the science too. And this one's more about Fauci. And I'm going to stick to this. I wanted to also talk about some of the weekend news talking heads, because they were all talking about immigration this weekend. And I got to tell you, all 3 main networks that have, or the networks that have the Sunday talk shows, we're all talking about immigration, and everyone in the media is kind of a little annoyed with the administration as far as that goes, because they're kind of being kept in the dark. And in fact, well, we'll get into that in the when I get into my bookmarks, because I have do one more article on science. But they were being a little, what's the word, pissy about the media kind of asking them questions, and it was kind of weird, you know. And it's interesting that some of the media are starting to actually ask tougher questions, and boy, that does not bode well for the Biden administration. If I get to it today, if not, we'll talk about that a little more in depth tomorrow. But I want to do this other article about science. She blinded me with science. So this one, Victor David Hansen in American Greatness wrote another good article, and this is more about the other people who love science. Throughout the Trump years, and in particular during the 2020 COVID pandemic crisis, the nation was lectured by the left to, quote, follow the data. Science. As the Democrats proclaim themselves the party of science, as sober and judicious children of the Enlightenment, they alone, and not just they offered, but they alone offered the necessary disinterested correctives to Trump's supposed bluster and exaggeration, and to his anti-scientific deplorable following, often dismissed by Biden as dregs, chumps, and Neanderthals. In truth, leftists and Democrats, that's a little redundant, Victor David Hanson, have become the purveyors of superstition. Their creation of a fantasy world is not because they do not believe in science per se, but because they believe more in the primacy of ideology that should shape and warp science in a proper fashion for the greater good. Whenever you hear the words "for the greater good," run away. My son's university had changed one of their themes for the year to something about the greater good, and I was like, oh my God, they're going down this path. Anyway, what prompted Paul Ehrlich, Al Gore, or Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez hysterically and wrongly to forecast widespread demographic or climatological catastrophe in just a few years was not ignorance of science per se, but a desire to massage science for our own good. The medical pandemic godhead of the left has been an octogenarian, has been octogenarian Dr. Anthony Fauci. His twin chief public relations explainer has been liberal darling New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. Both were always supposed to be on top of the science. Dr. Fauci has not just been flat out wrong on the science of COVID in his assessments of the origins and possible dangers of COVID-19, or of when we can get back to normal, of when the vaccinations would appear and which particular governors had been doing the most or least effective management of the disease. He has also, by his own admission, deliberately lied. That is, Fauci has rejected science as we knew it to mislead the public. For our own interest, he adopted the Platonic, quote, noble lie on occasion, end quote. For example, he conceded that he had downplayed the value of masks. He now seems to approve of wearing one on top of another in order to prevent too many wearing them, and thus the public shorting the supply available to more important healthcare workers. Fauci also proverbially moved the goalpost on herd immunity from the high 60s to the low 90s as a percent of the population either vaccinated or with antibodies necessary to achieve a de facto end of the pandemic. Again, Fauci defied the science on the theory he knew better, in assuming that the childish public would become too lax when and if it believed herd immunity was on the horizon. Unspoken is that Fauci usually errs on the side of what is deemed progressive orthodoxy. In contrast, Dr. Scott Atlas warned us that extended and complete lockdowns in any cost-benefit analysis might well inflict more human and economic damage than the virus. And he added that an opened up Florida and Texas might do no worse virally than a lockdown California or New York while avoiding the severe recessionary collateral damage. Yet Atlas was damned for not following the science. You blinded me with science. For the crime of working for Trump and for following the science while targeted wearing of masks and social distancing and quarantining of vulnerable populations are necessary, complete quarantines of the entire population and extended closing schools are counterproductive. Little need be said of Cuomo other than the applicable Roman dictum. He created a desert and called it peace. When the federal government delivered a tent hospital and a huge hospital ship, they went unused. When it sent ventilators, Cuomo raged that they were too little too late. When his own record in New York of COVID mismanagement became public, currently over 2,500 deaths per million population, the second highest state in the nation and about 35 to 40% higher than the open, but hated Texas and Florida, he lied about his own redirection of COVID patients into pristine long-term health care facilities that resulted in a proverbial bloodbath. In his adherence to science, Cuomo received an Emmy for his narcissistic, you know what I'm trying to say, you know the thing.
You know the thing.
Narcissistic press conferences and adeptness at blame gaming. That he was brought low not by his lethal politicking, but by serial allegations of being rude and handsy with female staffers suggests that his unscientific approaches to the pandemic were of little concern to his, quote, scientific, end quote, supporters. Consider another scientific debacle. In the midst of the quarantine, when governors and mayors were threatening to jail any who violated social distancing, mask wearing, or assembling en masse outdoors, hundreds of thousands hit the nation's streets in crowded phalanxes of screaming and saliva-projecting protesters, all supposedly in violation of the science of epidemiology and public health. The reaction of our elected officials, not just silence, but open approbation, is to be expected given the political class is so often timid and simply genuflects to perceive voter pressure groups. But the science on spec also came to the rescue of the quarantine violators to offer pseudoscientific support for violating government-mandated data-driven policies. Over 1,200 healthcare officials weighed in with their expertise and postmodern gibberish to defend mass violations of quarantine rules. Quote, instead, we wanted to present a narrative that prioritizes opposition to racism that as vital to the public health, including the epidemic response. And the experts added all sorts of postmodern hedging to emphasize that their recalibrated woke science was now different than others' less woke science. Quote, however, as public health advocates, we do not condemn these gatherings as risky for COVID-19 transmission. We support them as vital to the national public health and to the threatened health, specifically of Black people in the United States. End quote. So in animal farm terms, some protests are more in violation than others. In a more historical vein, we might imagine these experts in another time and place joining the chorus of scientists praising the ergonomic genius of Joseph Stalin, whose brilliant and scientific irrigation fantasies begin the destruction of the Aral Sea. In any case, millions decided why stay indoors when millions of others hit the streets to protest, loot, burn, and destroy and injure with the sanction. What the hell happened there? That was weird. Without ever having examined the patient in question. But science! According to Lee, Trump was mentally impaired, a sociopath, and needed an intervention. A serious medical diagnosis that soon became a, quote, scientific, end quote, grounding for the wild charges leveled at Trump of incompetence on network and cable news. Trump, in his exasperation at fake news, took the Montreal Cognitive Assessment Test to prove his powers of recall and analysis. He aced the exam. Is it buffering? Is it over? Is the buffering over? Okay, it looks like it's working again. Good. But where is Lee now in the era of a 78-year-old Joe Biden in the White House? As if. Or rather, where is the left to use her, quote, research, quote, end quote, to question whether Joe Biden is compos mentis? In the last 30 days, he has claimed there was none vaccinated when he entered office. He was photographed receiving a shot on December 21st, a month before his inauguration. In truth, 1 million a day were receiving vaccinations when Biden assumed the presidency. He cannot at times remember the name of his own Secretary of Defense or of the Pentagon, where General Lloyd Austin works, and increasingly needs a translator to make sense of his slurred words, raspy voice, off-topic wandering, truncated vocabulary, and fragmented syntax. And President Harris, I mean,
come on, man.
Trump was once said to be shaky and disguising an obvious illness because after a long day at West Point, he walked slowly in his leather shoes on a smooth ramp. In contrast, this week, Joe Biden staggered and fell 3 times climbing the stairs to Air Force One without a commensurate media howl. Will Joe be subject to an outside medical assessment? Might Dr. Lee reappear to give the Montreal test? Question mark. To be fair, I've fallen upstairs more than once in several occasions. It happens, but still, you know what they're saying. I think we know the answer. Science, he blinded me with science, is used to denigrate a perceived enemy of the people and ignored to enhance a guardian of the flock. Joe Biden and the left are redundant, are implying, if not outright asserting, that there is now an epidemic of anti-Asian violence perpetrated by white racists, insidiously emboldened by Trump's past references to the Wuhan or China virus. And no doubt, in a nation of 330 million people, there are lots of haters who happen to be white, but are they the main culprit for racially motivated crimes of hatred against Asian Americans? I think we know the answer. Recently, a deranged sect addict of religious fanatics shot and killed 8 people in the Atlanta area, 6 of whom were apparently Asian Americans. When apprehended, the 21-year-old confessed to the murders in unhinged fashions. He claimed that he sought to eliminate sex workers and their places of business in general, with which he apparently was obsessed. The unhinged shooter denied that race drove his murdering, and indeed, he murdered 2 whites and injured a Latino, and his past proven sex addiction and mental instability, along with his lethal shooting of non-Asians, suggested he was a pathological, mentally impaired murderer, not a race hater bent on mowing down the other. No matter, the media massaged the story into proof that its theories that a spate of recent hate crime attacks against Asian Americans were fueled by white supremacists, and at least those goaded on by the racist Donald Trump. That narrative was lacking evidence in both the Georgia shootings and the recent assault on Asians. One data point to justify such unsubstantiated charges that we might not see is a list of all Asian American victims of recent hate crimes calibrated by the race and ethnicity of the attacker and then adjusted to percentages of the general population, all in the context of clear racial animosity. To do so might suggest that in all of those attacks where a clear premeditated racial motive rather than random violence or psychological deviance is found, black males are inordinately represented. For example, in the FBI hate crime statistics for 2019, the most recent year available, 4.4% of all single bias racial hate crimes were Asian American, where the race and ethnicity of the perpetrators for all hate crimes was known. 52% were white, of whom 33.1% were in the ethnic category list as not Hispanic or Latino. Such so-called non-Hispanic whites make up about 65 to 70% of the population, depending on the method of categorization, in contrast to 23.9% of hate crime perpetrators were identified as black or African American, while they comprise only 12 to 13% of the population. Data from New York and San Francisco are on bodily violence or crimes in general against Asians suggests the same pattern. The science might suggest that in matters of hate crimes, if a society insists on focusing on the race and ethnicity of the attacker and knows the motive, it should then compare relative percentages of the population to determine who is inordinately or not inordinately committing such crimes. Oh, They're not going to do that. Come on. To the degree some progressives follow the science, the more honest left-wing venues have conceded that blacks may have been inordinately responsible in demographic terms for anti-Asian violence and indeed are overrepresented in race-driven hate crimes in general. But they escape the obvious ramifications of such intersectional hatreds by offering an exculpatory exegesis, whatever he says. Victor David Hanson tends to use words that I don't freaking understand sometimes. Nonetheless, whites are responsible for the hate by pitting one racial group against another to ensure Roman-like divide and conquer white supremacy. So it's y'all's fault no matter what, white people. Sorry. It doesn't matter who commits the crime. It's your fault. Thus, one example, one Antoine Watson ran across the street to push down and kill an 84-year-old San Franciscan Visha Ratan-Pakdi, because either Donald Trump had used the phrase Chinese virus or due to the insidious white supremacy that had conditioned the African-American Watson to hate immigrants from Thailand. Do you follow that? The science might also tally up all the material and human damage committed in 2020 in Los Angeles, Minneapolis, Portland, Seattle, and Washington, D.C., and then compare it to the carnage of January 6th at the Capitol. And then experts might show whether there is a scientific correlation between the number of federal troops posted in Washington to other major riot-torn cities, at least in terms of soldiers stationed per person injured and killed, or millions of dollars in property damage. Otherwise, why the inordinate military buildup around the Capitol? Well, you know, those people in the Capitol are much more important than anyone else like you and me. In truth, our woke officials pay little attention to science. If the point is to vaccinate first all Americans more likely to die or become seriously ill by COVID-19, then age and proven comorbidities might have been the most effective scientific criteria to schedule vaccinations. Yet for weeks, in many states, instead we floundered by ignoring the science as scientists haggled over which particular marginalized or essential community should gain precedence over another. In the Russian collusion hoax, to this hour, we have ignored the findings of Robert Mueller's failed $35 million 22-month investigation. Christopher Steele testified that he had no data to present to back up his mythical, now biblical dossier. James Comey pleaded amnesia 245 times, as in, I don't recall. When asked under oath about his own investigation, Robert Mueller himself testified he knew almost nothing about Fusion GPS and the Steele dossier, the catalyst for his own investigation. James Clapper had no evidence. He testified under oath to substantiate his public charges that the President of the United States may be a Russian asset. No matter, in learning nothing, forgetting nothing fashion, we are now returning to the theme of Trump as a Russian asset and colluder on the basis of new evidence from the intelligence community, such as the science of Russian collusion. As a general rule, next time an official or politician or expert lectures us on the science, make sure that he is not projecting his own scientific biases on others. All right, so those are the two that I wanted to get through today, and everything else be damned. But let's see, I just wanted to go into my bookmarks because there were a couple things I really wanted to touch on. By the way, thank you, Jack Conchgren, Johnny Bonsacco, Tyler F., Cynical Lindsay, Grill Empire Pete, Becca Fairley again for sharing the show with the people you know on social media, and anyone else who's done that through the share arrow or whatever. I appreciate you too. Thank you so much. Real quick, there was a couple things in the bookmark that I really wanted to talk about today, so I'm going to go a little long. This one. I'll put the article in here. Judges ruled that Michigan's Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, violated state law last year when she issued, quote, guidance, end quote, on how absentee ballots should be evaluated. I wonder who's been talking about that. She broke state law. So there's an article in the Washington Examiner that will be in the tabs. I'll just give you the lead here. Let's see here. A judge ruled that Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson violated state law last year when she issued guidance on how absentee ballots should be evaluated. State court claims judge Christopher Murray ruled last week that Benson, a Democrat, did not follow the proper rulemaking process when instructing voting clerks in October to presume the accuracy of absentee ballot signatures, and that the guidance is now invalid. Oh, too much, too little, too late to ever try again. Too much, too little, too late. This shit has got to end. Anyway, you can read the rest of that article. We do that all along. Let's see, what else do I have in let's see. New statement from former President Donald Trump on the Biden administration's quickly deteriorating southwest border crisis. The Biden administration has turned a national triumph into a national disaster. Well, there's lots of evidence that the people who are coming across the border now were just waiting for Joe Biden to get inaugurated. In fact, I know some of it's anecdotal, but they were telling the news people that. I know that, who was it? One of the talking heads was interviewing someone coming across the border, someone from Brazil. Okay. Now think about where Brazil is in reference to Central America and our southern border. And this guy traveled all the way up from Brazil and waited till Joe Biden got in office and then crossed the border and then told Martha Radaz from ABC News that, we were waiting we knew it would be easier under Biden. If Donald Trump would have been president, I wouldn't even have tried. Ha! Interesting. Okay, other things here. Let's see. Mexico will no longer allow people on non-essential travel across its southern border with Belize and Guatemala. The country will impose restrictions to block traffic at ports of entry in an effort to prevent the spread of COVID-19. So they're closing their southern border again. President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador's administration announced Thursday that the country will impose restrictions to block traffic at ports of entry in an effort to prevent the spread of COVID-19. The move could affect Central America's ability to get into Mexico, which would affect the number of adults, children, and families arriving on the U.S. and Mexico border amid worsening crisis. It's not clear how Mexican authorities will respond to migrants who attempt to come over its southern border on rafts between border crossings. You know, they have... because especially when they come in caravans, they just push their way through any forces they put on that border. So it's going to be interesting to see if. Now, remember, Biden asked Mexico to do the same thing as Trump asked them to do, to try to stop people coming through our border. It's not working. They're coming over in record numbers, and all of our facilities are just jam-packed and way over capacity. And they don't want the media to see it. So this just is what it is. Let's see what else I have in the bookmarks. This was weird. Thank you, Black Hebrew Israelite, for thank you for sponsoring the show, Black Hebrew Israelite, through SuperChats on YouTube.
That's right.
Who says, I have recovered from the Wu-Tang flu.
That's right.
You have, and so have I. You are part of the 99.97%. I'm still, okay, if you have an idea for merch, I was thinking of doing I'm part of the 99.97% t-shirt or COVID survivor. I don't know what I want to put for a t-shirt. Which one, in the description, not in the description, in the comment section, come back to this video and go to the comment section and tell me what you think would be a good merch for my, because I'll design some stuff, but I haven't really thought about it enough. And I think my 2020 at WTF or whatever it is, FFS shirt, I think it might be dated. That's the only thing I ought to have in my merch section. I got to up my merch game. Hello, Irate Prostate. How you doing, my brother? All right, just things in Twitter. Really wild stuff downtown. The Stop Asian Hate rally is clashing with a pro-Uyghur drive-by. The pro-Uyghur group is shouting, F China. Whoop.
China is asshole.
Try that again.
China is asshole.
And the Asian rallies responding by calling them racist. Interesting. Now, I don't know. You're not going to be able to see the bookmarks. I haven't. There's no article that corresponds with this. Now, I don't know who's part of the pro-Uyghur people are. if they're just doing something that's anti-China. But in any case, why would they be called racist for that? Anyway, also, let's see. Senator Dick Durbin, I introduced the DREAM Act 20 years ago. Most people know what it's about, and mass majority of Americans of all political faiths support it, yet I brought it to the floor 5 times. I've been stopped by the filibuster 5 times from passing it. Yeah, well, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, it's a shitty act. And so what? The Democrats are really, truly trying to push the public into supporting the fact that they want to end the filibuster. And in fact, here's a CNN politics article. Listen to this. This is a tweet from CNN Politics. What's a filibuster? Democrats may finally axe a relic of our racist past. Now, the filibuster really kind of slows down the Senate, and that's great. I don't think the Senate should be just rubber stamping everything. And if you have a 50-50 Senate, obviously there's not a huge mandate by the entire country for things that happen. So the filibuster has its place. But they're trying to associate it with a racist past. Now remember who uses the filibuster the most in the last 10 years. Hasn't been the Republicans. Now because when the Republicans have been in power, right? Did you ever hear of the Democrats just hankering on the idea of they should get rid of the filibuster while the Republicans had a majority in the Senate? Did you ever hear the words mentioned? Okay, because they were using it all the time. And in fact, let's see, who was it that there was a party, people from a party that filibustered the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Now, I know they have that bullshit, the party switch nonsense, but who was it that filibustered the 1964 Civil Rights Act? That was, what was his name? The guy, I think he was, Joe Biden called him his mentor and Hillary Clinton called him a friend. And, freaking Senator Robert Byrd, former KKK member, later the Democrat, and remained a Democrat until he died and was still in the Senate like into his 90s. Oh, the party switched, really? Because the guy who filibustered the 1964 Civil Rights Act sure didn't change parties. Oh, and Al Gore Sr., he too was one of the main opponents of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, and his son Al Gore Jr., remember him? Mr. Climate Change himself. Did he ever stop being a Democrat? Oh, hell to the nizzo. In fact, the only Republican of note that did change parties back then, because all those Democrats stayed Democrat until the day they died. The South was Democrat dominated all the way up until really the 1990s. They changed parties back then? No, they didn't. The Democrats owned the South until the 90s, and then Republicans started picking off based on fiscal policies. Strom Thurmond was the only one who changed. He was one of the ones who changed over for the party from back then. But Robert Byrd didn't. The Gore family didn't. There are a whole bunch of them. None of them changed parties. They changed parties. Kiss my ass. Joe Biden administration has entered into a $86 million contract to house migrants at hotels. Oh, well, great. I'm going to open that article. You'll be pissed off. Basically, what they're doing, a nonprofit organization, Endeavors, confirmed to the Washington Examiner that the Department of Homeland Security has contracted with Endeavors to provide critical services to migrant families. Oh, such a nice name. Migrant families. You mean the guys who came across the border illegally? The contract will reportedly last for 6 months, and funds will be used to house 1,200 migrant family members. Oh, okay. The contract comes after border officials warned that the unprecedented number of children, 117,000, will arrive at the U.S.-Mexico border in 2021. Is that all? They sure could get more than that. 80,000 unaccompanied minors arrived during the 2019 crisis on the southwestern border. Endeavor said it was awarded $178,100,000 from the federal government since 2011, with this most recent contract to house migrants making up the largest contract to date. More than 14,000 migrant children were in the custody of U.S. Customs, Border Protection, or the Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Refugee Settlement. Why are they not talking about the hotels? Anyway, they're going to do an $86 million contract. Oh, yeah, so listen to this. Okay, this is funny. So since 2011, they've been awarded $178 million. But 86 million of that, so just under half in this one contract. Okay, so 86 million this year of 178 million. That's almost half of it this year, to organize 1,000 migrants in hotel rooms. Well, that's amazing. Good for them. Thank you, Black Hebrew Israelite.
That's right.
For sponsoring the show again with another deuce. I have survived the China virus. Put that on a T.
That's right.
I'm going to consider how canceled I'll be if I put that shirt out. How about I survived the virus from the country that shall not be named? That's kind of, because that's how I describe it. I describe it as the country that shall not be named. Thank you, Black Hebrew Israelite, for being a continued sponsor of the show. Yeah, are they going to go to one with an omelet buffet? Yeah, oh my God. I'm just going to be late today. That's all there is to it. Let's see. Arizona crisis. Oh, that's funny. The Arizona governor attempts to explain the worst situation we've seen at the border to the Biden administration. This is from Twitchy. Arizona Governor Doug Ducey calls the situation at the border a crisis and is attempting to help the Biden administration and others in D.C. better grasp what is happening there. And so he had this thing's got to finish growing. This morning, Biden DHS Secretary Mayorkas claimed the border was secure. The situation unfolding at the border is a crisis, and D.C. is completely divorced from reality. I spoke to Martha Radaz of ABC this week about the surge of illegal immigration and a humanitarian crisis. You can watch those videos. This is also one, I think, is it in this one? Where she talks to the, this is the panel they had. Again, I'll put these in the tab because I'm not going to be able to go through them right now. Also, unequivocally false, Biden DHS secretary denies a media gag order at the border. Yeah, you'll just have to read that one too. Also, how can you say the border is closed? Oh, and then he's talking to Chuck Todd. How can you say the border is closed? Embassy Chuck Todd presses him. Kind of a joke that he says the border is closed. And this guy, this will be the last one. I'll skip the other ones I hit today, but this guy, Bessie's again. I'm reminding you that Kenyon Lonsdale prefers tree self-pronouns. If you follow me on Twitter, there's a series of tweets by myself and a couple other people discussing this. Apparently, this young man, excuse me, did I say man? I misgendered this branch of whatever part of entertainment he is. Kenny Lonsdale has revealed now see, that's messed up. Their preferred pronoun is tree rather than he. The Australian performer who is best known for their starring roles in the Flash and Love Simon discuss pronouns with fans during a live Q&A on their See, now again, they're not even respecting this kid's pronouns. They're saying their and not tree self. Hello, Amy. I'm just gonna leave this there, and we'll talk about that one tomorrow, guys. I gotta tell you, this fascinating day, and tree and tree self, because he's just trying to branch out, I guess, and just don't let your negative feelings about him take root. I'm just telling you, his bark is worse than his bite. He's just trying to stick it to the man. I just hope nobody commits violence and turns him to a pulp, because they would have to that would have to make the paper. Oh my God. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today on the Morning Night Live. If you like what we do, make sure you hit the like button before you click anything else. And if you really liked it, share it with people you know. I'm trying to grow the channel, and I'm only growing one person a week. You can help by just sharing it out and telling people, hey, come check this dude out. And also, if you really like what we do, if you want to help us out, there's people who like to do that. Just these jokes are making me want to leave. Yes, I understand. I understand the one who. You can support the channel in monetary ways. All those are down in the description below if you really insist. I greatly appreciate it. It does help me do cool things like, I fix my sound, and I have a chair that I can sit in for hours without having a backache. And I think the next thing I'm going to do is probably buy a new camera setup so I can have 2 cameras going and try some different effects. So that's what your money goes toward, just making the show better. Anyway, I got to go, guys. My name is Excuse me. Let me take a sip here. Take a sip. My name's... wait a minute. Thank you, Gamer Valine, who says, that is stealing my thing. I have a WoW character named Trees Nuts. Trees Nuts. Well, is it... I was trying to think of a good nut pun. Because by the way, when I was growing up... It's my last story, and I'm going to be late. We had a black walnut tree in our yard, this huge black walnut tree, right? And we had a wooden shed in the yard, where my mom still lives there in that same house. And by the way, thank you, Gamer Valine, for sponsoring the show. We had this walnut tree, a big black walnut tree, and we had a shed in the back of the house, right? And when I went to college, my parents really didn't pay attention to that shed. They didn't use it much. And so they stored some stuff out there, and literally for, probably the whole time I was in school, I don't think they ever went out to that shed. And I think after my junior year in college, I went home and, giant walnut tree, shed in the yard. And I was like, what is in that shed? I don't even remember what we have out there. And they weren't really sure either, because they hadn't really looked at it in a while. So I'm like, okay, well, let's go check out what's in the shed. Maybe we'll clean it out and have some storage room for your lawn equipment instead of keeping it in the garage. I went and opened the shed, and literally the entire shed is every flat surface or whatever was filled with black walnuts. So apparently the squirrels in our neighborhood had been taking the black walnuts that my parents never really did anything with other than clean them up and throw them out, and were hiding them in that shed. There was a little hole in the back of the shed, just a tiny little hole, and that thing was just filled with black walnuts. I mean, I've never seen anything like it in my life. It was hilarious. So why did I stop my ending for that story? I have no idea, but ladies and gentlemen, I really got to go this time. My name is PDawgKnight, and I'm out of here. Bye-bye. Hey, this is PDawgKnight, and Thank you for watching today on the PDawgKnight Channel. If you have an observation or remark you'd like to make about this video or my channel, I absolutely welcome you to write it in the comment section down below. I really look forward to hearing from you. And before you go, if you like what you saw but you're not already subscribed, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and definitely click that bell that pops up afterward so you'll be notified when I post new videos or when we go live. I broadcast my live show, The Morning Night Live, Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 o'clock Central. A special thank you to all supporters of this channel who share our videos on social media and who make donations through the Streamlabs link, which is also in the description down below. Thanks again, and until next time, I'm PDawgKnight, and I'm out of here.